When I first started imbibing the Abraham truths, I'll call them, I found myself having to question other things that I used to think as true. So I'm trying to synthesize a couple of different teachings that I've been juggling with all my life. You talked about desire, and in some Eastern traditions, desire is equated with suffering, that having desire is suffering. I have come to the realization, and Abraham has kind of supported that we are desire factories, that in fact desire cannot be stopped and it's okay.
You can't be eternal and absent of desire, because
right.
The desire is what calls it all forward.
So my imperfect understanding that desire is equated with suffering needs to be replaced with a perfect understanding that the suffering really comes from the lack of immediate fulfillment. That's where we human beings suffered. It's not in having desire, it's in expecting it to manifest immediately.
Let's talk about it. It's even more base than that. You're right on it. But in very simple terms, when your life has caused you to become vibrationally something that you're not letting yourself be, you feel bad.
Yes.
And it is not inaccurate to say, my desire is part of the reason I feel bad, because before I became that expanded being, I didn't feel as much resistance between who I'm letting myself be and who I've become. So we wouldn't say they're wrong, because if someone called you on the telephone and said, hello, you don't know me, I'm just calling to tell you I will never call you again, you would say, okay. But if someone that you cared about called you and said, I'm never going to call you again, you'd feel bad. And some could say, you feel bad because you have the desire that that person calls you again. If you could get rid of the desire that that person calls you again, then you wouldn't feel bad. And we say, the trouble with that is you can't become less than life has caused you to become. You can't regress. You can't undo and be what you were before.
What causes our feelings of guilt in wanting too much? What causes our feelings?
Your belief in something that doesn't exist. Your belief in shortage. Your belief that if you take more than your fair share, someone else will be deprived. And we say, you can't get sick enough to help sick people be well. Do you ever say, I've been well for so long, I think I'll be sick for the next 10 years to allow more wellness for the sick people?
I think it does come from an understanding, not an appreciation, but a teaching of shortage, a teaching of scarcity.
A teaching of that's based on action. In other words, and we understand why you'd get there. You have these decided beginnings and endings to your experience that you call birth and death. And so you tend to want to quantify everything in beginnings and endings. It's hard for you to remember that you are this eternal stream of consciousness. And so then, especially when you are action-oriented, in your action orientation, you see there's a limit to how much you can do. There's just a limit to how much you can move around with a physical body in a 8-hour day or in a 12-hour day. In other words, that's what we meant by getting hold of those oars and trying really hard. You really try hard. We watch you, even in this time of incredible technology. You are working hard just keeping up with your email. In other words, you are involved in so much action, even though your machines are washing your clothes and your machines are washing your dishes and the machines are harvesting the crops and the machines are manufacturing the cars. And so in terms of real physical action, Esther watches the people building the buildings and she says to them from a distance, you're about the only ones that are still picking it up and putting it over there. In other words, there are still labor-intensive things going on your planet, but there's only so much that you can do in a period of time in relationship to action. And there is so much more that you can accomplish when you get into the alignment of thought. When you begin aligning ideas, you could sit for 15 minutes at the beginning of a day and conjure an image of yourself in your body or in your environment or in your business to be or in your relationship to be. And if you could imagine it to the point that you bring yourself to some level of enthusiasm, you will have accomplished more in that 15 minutes of visualization than you could in 10 years of action. We're not kidding you.
I agree. I think you're...
The leverage in alignment. But most people do not benefit from the leverage in alignment because they think about what they want and they go immediately to what they don't want. So they don't maintain enough continuity. If you hold a thought for as little as 17 seconds, Law of attraction responds to it. That's the point where law of attraction kicks in. Hold it for another 17 seconds and another level of law of attraction kicks in. Do that until you've achieved alignment without resistance for 68 seconds, and you have activated the resources of the universe. And your action becomes less necessary when you do that. But most people are not aware of the power of thought or the power of energy vibration because they've been depending upon action and complaining about it too. In other words, if you're joyful in your action, then you're not contradicting your alignment. And that's what we wish for you. We want your action to be the delicious way in which you pluck the fruits of your vibrational labor. We want your labor, there isn't any, to be vibrational, to be thought, to be energy, to be amusement, to be amazement, to be appreciation. We want you to direct your thoughts with an eye to what's happening in your belly while you do it. Esther's really been on this visualization jag because she can feel this avalanche of wonderment flowing toward her. And so she's preparing for the future experience. She knows that their business as it exists, their buildings as they exist, their website as it exists, their financial arrangement in terms of receiving from clients as it exists, nothing is going to be big enough for what's coming. She can feel it, you see. And she can't even imagine what's coming. She can feel it, but she can't even get her thoughts around it. It is so big. And so she's been lying in her bed in the morning and just trying to find the feeling place of whatever it is, feeling good when it comes. In other words, even the idea of an avalanche is like something big is coming at me and it's going to take me over. But to ride an avalanche. You think being on a surfboard is fun. Riding an avalanche is what you have intended to do from your non-physical perspective, you see. So she's been waking up early in the morning and lying in her bed while all is quiet, and she's been conjuring feelings that give her this feeling of expansiveness and this feeling of exhilaration, and she's been working to maintain only positive feelings in it, because she'll feel the positive come and then she feels a little dread seeping in, like we're not ready, and then she'll feel the positive come and then she'll feel the little bit of dread. And so she knows what she's working on, and she also knows that a little bit of dread in the avalanche of good thoughts that she's having feels very much like a sore thumb. In other words, she can feel it right away. What we want Esther to understand is she doesn't have to figure out how to do it. She only has to take pleasure in the dreaming of it. It's the universe's job to figure out how and where and who. It's your job to figure out what and why, you see. And so that's that creative edge that you want to hold yourself on. And when you start thinking about what and why, what and why, what and why, solutions to problems appear even before the problem. So you live problemless as you are moving forward in this exhilaration that you call life. Oh, it is so good. Once you begin to harness the power of your true beingness, you are less interested in action unless the action is utterly pleasing in the process, you see. You don't do stuff to make it happen. You do it because you want to do it. It's already been made to happen through the alignment of energy. And if you really want to lay this out in a way that almost without exception you can really hear that, think about the multi-billionaire who could not possibly justify his receiving of his wealth through his behavior. He's not that fast at anything. He can't manufacture that many cars in a day by himself to justify the multi-billions that he is receiving. You have to accept that there are other factors. All your life, you've seen people who seem to be doing very little thriving, and people who are working their brains out not getting anything in terms of comparison. You just have to know, and you do, that there are other factors, and we're here to tell you the factor is vibration, and vibration is thought, and thought is power, and emotion is your indication of the alignment. Thought out of alignment, not powerful.
I have one quick practical question. My 15-year-old daughter is going to start asking for driving lessons. When I was a teenager...
Do you remember driving? Do you remember your first driving? Oh, yeah. Do you remember feeling the desire to have that freedom?
Oh, yes.
And get behind that wheel?
Oh, yes.
Well, stay there just for a moment and feel the freshness of that. Feel the eagerness to do that before somebody said no. Or before somebody said, you scare me.
Well, you're You're pointing to my question, and when we used to watch these films in hygiene class of terrible automobile crashes to give us a healthy fear of what's out there. I don't want my daughter to be afraid behind the wheel, and I don't want her to attract what she doesn't want. How can I give her a healthy fear of consequences of wrong behavior and at the same time not make her afraid?
There's no such thing. Those words contradict themselves all over the place. There's no such thing as a healthy fear, and there's no such thing as a fear that does not bring you more of what you do not want.
So what you're saying is I should let somebody else teach you to drive.
No, we're saying line up your energy before you do.
Right.
That's exactly where we started. In other words, if you worry about her, and from that place of worry, you have her in the car, then whether you say anything or not, regardless of the imaginary brake pedal that you're shoving your foot through the floor on, regardless of that, if you feel concern, if you feel lack of belief in her ability to pull this off before you sit with her, then the message that you give to her is, I don't think you can do this.
I have faith in her ability. I don't necessarily have faith in everyone else's around her. I guess that's a parent's fears.
Maybe so, but let's go back to your questions are tying together so incredibly beautifully. You have fear of this world that you live in when you've been believing in action, in the actions of others. In other words, you can't control the actions of others, you say, and we say, if you control your vibration, law of attraction controls what comes to you, and no one that has that kind of an action has access to you unless you make her watch those films. You see, she has a healthy view of the world and a belief in her invincibility that is concurrent with the way the source within her feels. And we know there are people even in this room who have had bad things happen to people that they love, who are having a hard time hearing this. And we say, when you don't know about energy and you don't know about alignment, and so you don't work to come into alignment, you don't have that power. And when you live in a world of action, there are all kinds of actions that you can't control. That's what's making people feel nuts. All kinds of behaviors going on, and you say, I like that behavior, I'd vote for that. I don't like that behavior, I'd vote against that. Not understanding that when you say yes to something, you include it in your vibration, but when you say no to something, you include it in your vibration. And so you have to step away from this action, yes, no world into a vibrational, yes, 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 yes. I know what I don't want, I know what I do want. And of course, the variety that surrounds you cannot help but, and it is supposed to help you know what you don't want. You're just never supposed to be so heavy-handed on the I know what I don't want, I know what I don't want, I know what I don't want, I know what I don't want. Because when you do that for centuries, then great leaders who are receiving from source come out by saying, your desire is what's making you feel bad. And we say, never. It's not your desire that's making you feel bad. It's your attention to the absence of it that is making you feel bad. This is a law that is accurate and always consistent. Jerry and Esther were in Buffalo years ago. And they turned on the television, and it was a newscast, and they were talking about the local school was having the week when they were making all of the students there watch those films and know about drunk driving. And the whole school was turned into this play where different people were assigned different roles. They actually put bloody and broken cars in the stadium.
I've been a high school teacher. I've taken part in those.
The children were to look at. And as Esther and Jerry watched it, they could not believe. They actually rang the bell, which meant someone died, which meant that person was plucked from the classroom. His parents were notified that he was dead. They were told to write obituaries. The other children were sent to the center where they would mourn him. They took it to such an extreme because they didn't think the children were taking the horror of driving seriously enough. And we say, good grief.
And misuse
those
of the
words don't go together
meaning.
either. Good and grief. So what you want to do, you want to say to your daughter, you want to say, I know who you are, and I've watched you, and I can feel the power of your being. And there is nothing in all the world that I want more than your well-being. And I gotta say, when I focus for a moment on the absence of your well-being, it takes me to my knees. The idea of something bad happening to you makes me crumble. And I realize that it's not because something bad is going to happen to you, it's because I'm focused upon exactly the opposite of what I wish for you. That's why you feel that way.